This meeting will now come to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Carlett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Binsbacher,
Here.
Councilmember Patena,
Here.
Councilmember Edwards,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Hunt, Councilmember Leone, Council Liaison Bowden,
Here.
Council Liaison Camacho.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council special meeting of May 17th, 2016. We have two items on our study session agenda tonight, and we will begin with the City of Peoria Sustainability Update. And Susan DeLuden is sitting in for City Manager Carl Swenson. So, Ms. DeLuden, would you like to start, please?
Yes, I'm very pleased to. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Our presenters on sustainability this evening are Lisa Estrada, our Economic Efficiency and Sustainability Manager, Ed Striffler, our Architectural Services Manager, and John Imick, our IT Director, to add some information on some sustainable actions we're taking over there in IT. Lisa and her team will present our annual report on the Sustainability Action Plan and talk a little bit how we're building our brand here in the city of Peoria. Sustainability has worked to differentiate ourselves among cities and provide that leadership. We're going to talk about our results and our performances and also some awards we've received this year. And as you know, we've come to you many times and talked about sustainability. We like to do it every year if possible. But it's not a static thing. It's always changing, and it's always different in the various different departments. So Lisa has a really great presentation she's put together for us. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening, Mayor and Council and Youth Liaisons. Before I get started, I must confess, I'm a nerd due to the fact that I always look forward to coming here and being here because I get to learn more about the great work that the city staff is doing to make your vision for this great city a reality. I'm inspired by their intelligence and I'm inspired by your leadership. Collectively, it gives me the energy to work harder and make a difference in my own little corner of the universe. I would like also to take a moment to congratulate all of you as you're drinking from your water glasses, and thank you for being one of the first to eliminate one-time water bottle use during the council meetings, and you did it so nicely and effortlessly. We have to catch up to you. So, let's get started. So, this evening we're going to give you an update on some of this past year's activities, like Susan alluded to. We're going to also present two department spotlights to give them an opportunity to share with you some work that they have done to move us forward in sustainability. We'll also share with you other fun and interesting sustainability activities that have taken place, followed by what we have in the works for the upcoming year. As a starting point, however, I would like to talk about this important term that we use. The terms and definitions for sustainability vary, but the underlying meaning remains the same: people, profit, and planet, or you might have heard of the environment, equity, and economy. The three need to work together to be truly sustainable. And for Peoria, our approach in advancing our sustainability goals have been through programs, education and awareness, events that engage and empower people to take action, just to name a few. Through this mindset, we have been able to demonstrate how environmental stewardship also translate to fiscal stewardship. It also opens doors for collaboration and partnerships, as no one individual or organization can do it alone. This is also long-range planning. It presents us with a chance to view our decision-making through a lens that considers the principles of sustainability before inadvertently committing future generations to unintended consequences. We realize that the city has risen as a leader in sustainability by openly stating our commitments, such as through the Sustainability Action Plan, followed up through our actions and telling our story to those that ask. We recognize that if we want the city of Peoria to be the first choice for residents, families, and businesses that is full of promise and opportunity, then we must continue paving the way and look way beyond the horizon to ensure that today's actions are deliberate and thoughtful with the future in mind. To help put sustainability in perspective, let me first for a moment draw your attention to some real sustainability challenges facing communities today. There's water resources and management. Living in the desert has pretty much guaranteed that we will have this life-sustaining resource at the forefront of everything we do. Land use and community building, providing the right balance between the built environment and the natural desert that living things depend on, while at the same time providing people with a place to recreate and appreciate its natural beauty. Transportation, not the most desirable topic of discussion, but yet one of the most important ones as it affects just about everything: safety, quality of life, the economy, public health, just to name a few. Energy use, my favorite topic, not because I consider myself an expert, but because it is one that resonates the most with me and how I use energy at home. As much time as we spend at work nowadays, it is our home away from home, so it only makes sense to adopt those same money-saving techniques. Then there's waste and recycling. For example, trying to work together with others who have mutual challenges in addressing waste. How can we divert stuff from the landfill? How can we give it another use, or how can we turn it into another product in the most efficient, economically, and environmentally safe way? And finally, through education and outreach, how do we create awareness? Again, sustainability challenges can't be solved by any one person or any one city or organization, not even a state. However, we can accept the notion that we can always do better. We can continue to lead and hopefully ignite a sense of urgency to ensure that future generations have at least a fair shot, or even better, the best possible standing to succeed in every way possible. And all of these challenges are outlined in the Sustainability Action Plan with specific objectives to help address the impact, which is before you in this image. Now moving on to success stories. Mayor and Council, you're all very well aware of this piece of land that sat vacant for a while. It was covered in loose gravel, perhaps in an effort to distract us from its emptiness. However, on one Peoria fine day, Councilmember Hunt had an idea for something better, which was supported by all of you. She had a vision and community support, and after a lot of discussions and coordination, followed by public input, truckloads of dirt, power tools, screws, and measuring tapes and shovels, we went from this to this. And what makes this so special is that it demonstrates the potential in all of us to come together to build a community with unique character that serves as a gathering place to share ideas, experiences, and learning. It also serves as a learning ground for gardening and composting and healthy living. There are master gardeners who have made themselves available to lend their knowledge and their expertise to successfully garden, which, as we all know, can be a challenge in the warm weather. It's always important to celebrate our successes, big or small, as they all help build a foundation for future success. And speaking of success, I am not sure how many people realize that we also have a demonstration garden led by Eric Wilson, the garden guru, right in front of City Hall. And there's real food, and it's thriving there, which is not what is going on in my backyard with my raised garden bed, but I'm trying. This garden was prompted by Councilman Leone, who also expressed an interest in a community garden. What makes this garden special is that it serves as a demonstration garden to show others how gardens can be aesthetically pleasing and functional by being edible. This garden also helps build community by employing a group of individuals, called group-supported employment through a program called Working Together, who tend the garden for us while providing them with job skills, training, and experience. This garden goes hand in hand with one of our Sustainable U workshops, which I will talk a little bit more about later. Another local community asset is Mama's Organic Farmers Market, located not far from here. Farmers markets are great as they are focused on local participation. Visitors can enjoy unique handcrafted items, local produce from nearby farms, local food vendors such as food trucks and others, entertainment for the little ones such as face painting, petting zoos, and crafts. There are also opportunities to participate in a co-op for those that are interested in getting a supply of organic produce on a more regular basis while supporting local farmers. And as Susan mentioned at the last council meeting, the city of Peoria was recognized by Arizona Forward for its public education and community outreach efforts under Sustainable U. This is a statewide award which was measured against 2 runner-up entries. You heard me mention earlier how sustainability challenges cannot be addressed by any one individual or organization. Sustainable U is an example of just that. Sustainable U performs well because of a cross-functional group of highly interested employees that work together to deliver the community with quality workshops with quality instructors that keep residents coming back for more. Sustainable U provides Peoria residents with the tools to improve their skills and knowledge in different areas of sustainable living. The graphic in front of you gives you an idea of some of the workshops we offer. Our container gardening was this year's most popular workshop with nearly 70 residents in attendance in a single workshop. All of the instructors are experts in their fields and passionate about their topics. We solicit workshop participants' feedback to ensure that we continue to serve their needs. In about a week, we will begin discussions with an urban farmer who created and currently leads an organization that is well regarded in the Phoenix area and who is very much interested in participating partnering with us to help us grow our roster of qualified instructors and workshop offerings. Another Sustainable U workshop I'd like to mention is the Cooking with Garden Greens workshop that was added this year as a natural growth and evolution thanks to the community garden. We partnered with Peoria's high school culinary class to give their students a hands-on project to learn from while giving us the opportunity to utilize their commercial-equipped kitchen, providing ample space and all the kitchen tools we needed to prepare delicious and healthy meals using vegetables from Peoria's very own community garden. And although I could probably live off of Oreos and pizza for the rest of my life, this deliciously prepared meal really broadened my food choices. It was really good. Kale salad. Now I'd like to transition to our annual Party for the Planet River and Trail Cleanup. This marks the 6th year where Peoria and over 200 volunteers in partnership with Glendale to remove trash and debris 1 mile north and south of Northern Avenue. Every year, the amount of trash removed is always at least a ton, if not more. This year, 2.4 tons of trash and debris were cleared from the riverbed. Many of you have participated in these cleanup events, and as you know, it's amazing what things you will find. Tires, plastic bags, plastic water bottles, shoes, socks, aluminum cans, construction materials, carpet remnants, just to name a few. This year, we celebrated Earth Day through another Party for the Planet event, Planet Palooza. The event highlights will be covered later this evening, but for now, I would just like to mention that each aspect of this event was carefully thought out and considered for over a year. In addition to celebrating through music, food, and entertainment, kids' activities were fun and educational. We partnered with ASU School of Sustainability to offer 2 kids' activities that focused on building communities of the future and other sustainability science activities. Our environmental resources team were present with high-quality games and activities that taught kids how to properly recycle. They quizzed them on the amount of time it takes for something to decompose, if it does ever. And of course, water conservation. We had a small fleet of all-electric vehicles from all price ranges, which is, in some cases were charged by a portable solar unit display, which was located right in front of the amphitheater. Since this was an Earth Festival, it only made sense that we use this event as a starting point to begin to minimize the amount of waste that is generated at our events. Signs like these were placed next to each recycle and trash container to help visitors understand which items can be recycled and which items ultimately end up going to the landfill. We are going to continue on recycling education and awareness and work with other community partners who face similar challenges and try to collectively come up with ways to address waste. The Office of Communications has done an outstanding job promoting citywide events and programs. Planet Palooza and the River Trail Cleanup was yet another event that received a lot of media attention. Since it was our first Earth Festival, we welcomed each and every opportunity. All city events received a lot of news media and social media, and this event was no exception. It was well covered weeks leading up to the event and the morning of. It is also important to consider how the coverage is part of an integrated effort to educate the public about the city's programs and initiatives well beyond the completion of the event. Each article that is written about what we do serves as an ongoing educational material for residents and others in seeing what communities like Peoria are doing to advance sustainability in their communities, and people are watching. I want to take a moment to thank over 60 Peoria High School students who gave up their Saturday to volunteer at Planet Palooza. I would also like to thank the Peoria Explorers for their participation and assistance that day. The volunteers made sure we were able to provide great customer service to our residents and our participating vendors. Now I'd like to switch gears a little bit to open space and the built environment. Like sustainability, quality of life is defined in many ways, but for Peoria, it is embodied in our safe neighborhoods, beautiful parks, and pristine open spaces. Open space allows the preservation of land for future generations to enjoy. As you know, it's a finite resource, so once it's gone, it's gone. It can be educational through habitats, native vegetation, and archaeological resources. It can also help provide some relief from the heat island effect, where nighttime temperatures never really cool down. It also provides for wildlife and natural habitat preservation, while also offering recreational respite in a rapidly urbanizing environment. Mayor and Council, you have focused your efforts to preserve and expand open space by carefully looking ahead and charting a course for our city for decades to come. Your actions will have a positive and sustainable impact that will be appreciated by many. While having open space is a key initiative, we also develop parks and recreational facilities, but how we do it is a question. We work closely with ASU on sustainability, and one project in particular afforded a mutual opportunity for city staff and a group of graduate students. The students researched best practices and case studies for a community park and delivered a quality report with data, their findings, and recommendations for our consideration. The students presented in front of staff and followed up with a good conversation that expanded our understanding of what this generation of students think a community park should look like. Yet once again, the Peoria Sports Complex was recognized with an award for the San Diego Padres and Seattle Mariners LEED certified clubhouses. This time, the U.S. Green Building Council's Arizona chapter presented the city with an award for its leadership in green building design. I just mentioned the importance of open space and what it means for Peoria's quality of life. Then I touched on the importance of integrating sustainability best practices through a student's perspective as the example of the Northern Community Park and ASU project, followed by the city's commitment to green building design through LEED standards. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ed Striffler, who will provide us with greater insight and motivating factors to design to LEED standard. And after Ed, we'll hear from John Imig, who will inform us of the opportunities to reduce energy consumption through technology.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak again on the issue of LEED. Many of the presentations that I give you have another purpose, and that's usually to authorize money, of which LEED is mentioned in that context. So we wanted to take a minute to just spend a few to talk about the what and the why of LEED so that you have a better education as to what those initials mean. At the top of your slide, you see it's an acronym for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And it's a performance measurement and rating system. It was developed by an entity called the United States Green Building Council, or USGBC, and was developed specifically for buildings. But we're seeing, with the success of its implementation in buildings, a look at whether or not this could be adapted to community scale, neighborhoods, urban cores, those kinds of things. And it's applicable both in the commercial and residential sector. Many of our Old Town properties began to explore LEED for Homes certification, a completely different end of the spectrum, like we pursue certification for our institutional buildings. So the system began in the late 1990s. It's now 4 generations later, and it's left the borders of the United States. It's worldwide. And in fact, the United States is very quickly becoming a smaller player in green building design compared to our international counterparts. 43% of the total square footage of green buildings worldwide are outside of the U.S. So, and that is growing very rapidly each year. LEED is interconnected with engineering professional associations such as ASHRAE, long acronym for air conditioning nerds, the Environmental Protection Agency at the federal government level, the ICBO, International Conference of Building Officials. They're the folks that author the building codes that we ourselves adopt as a city. All of these entities are coordinating change, and what they're doing is driving performance thresholds upward in the building industry. What used to be goals are now code, and each time a large subset of folks get to that next goal, they move the bar and they raise the bar. So that we're continuing to push our environmental footprint in a more favorable direction. Industry-leading professionals in LEED are credentialed in this rating system. I'm one of those. I have many on my staff. I mentioned below here that we have had a total of 16 Peoria staff pursue 1 or more levels of this credential so that they could be versed in it. They could speak to our development community when they came into the counter. We ourselves could lead by example, pardon the pun. And those credentials are maintained with the council's support. Thank you for allowing us our continuing education opportunities as part of our operations budgets. Us getting out there and understanding how the industry is moving allows us to try those things in our own facilities. Peoria formally adopted the LEED rating system as a performance measure for its building CIP projects in 2012, and that's in our Sustainability Action Plan. Thank you. The municipal court led the pack of gold certified buildings, followed by our community center. And as Lisa mentioned, our Mariners and Padres clubhouses received a lot of notoriety for achieving their LEED Gold certification. And we're optimistic, and we're targeting that same level of certification for our new Patrol Services Police Building, which you'll hear about in the July 5th council meeting. Life cycle thinking is taking over as compared to first cost focus. And this means that the dialogue about design is looking long range. It's not looking at that initial immediate cost impact. It's looking at that cost impact each and every month, each and every year over the life cycle of the building. This is meaning that what used to be a premium decision that we might make has now moved into category of normal, and what is premium has risen to a new level. So it's cyclical, the bar keeps moving. But the question is without a measurement metric, how does one really measure performance or make informed decisions about what to spend capital on? So what are some of the ways that Peoria excels in using LEED? We are doing quite well in managing our stormwater, keeping it where it needs to go, keeping those pollutants that travel with the stormwater on our sites and from polluting our stormwater systems and our river corridors and our open space. In the category of energy, which is both the building air conditioning, the lighting, the plug loads, we average 25 to 30% greater than the average building in efficiency. That's pretty good. Water efficiency, both on the building side, the toilets, the sinks, the showers, and the landscaping side, we're averaging 30 to 40% greater than the average building. Indoor air quality, this is something that's become far more important as people are plagued with more allergies, have greater sensitivities to the allergens and things that we drag in from the outdoor. We're making healthier building choices, the adhesives, the petroleum-based products. We are making conscious choices about what we put in the buildings, and we're doing a better job at filtering the ventilation air that you breathe, for the 10 hours a day that you're in the office. Lisa showed a picture of the landfill. It's not a pretty sight, and construction can be messy. If you've ever been to a construction site, there's lots of dumpsters and there's lots of waste. We're proud that we're repeatedly diverting 90% or more of our construction debris out of the landfill, recycling it as part of the construction process. That's not easy, that's hard. It takes conscious effort to do so. So how have we benefited from LEED? Arizona and Peoria were recently recognized nationally as leaders in sustainable building design. I'll pass this around. This is a national publication of the U.S. Green Building Council. It went out to everybody nationally and internationally who's part of the LEED program. And in it are highlighted some people that you might recognize. The mayor and the city manager were profiled as being movers and shakers in this industry, as setting Peoria at the lead of the pack in the state of Arizona, who reached that top 10 status in the United States. We're one of the top 10 producers of green buildings in the United States. So I'll pass this around for the mayor and council to look at. We're very proud of you for making that publication. It casts us in a great light. But this also allows us to attract those sustainability-minded businesses that we want to bring to our brand. Our Seattle Mariners counterparts, you heard about their sustainability efforts when we were doing the clubhouses. Arizona Public Service, they're constantly working with us to look at ways that they can help incentivize doing it greener, doing it more sustainably, saving energy, and they're willing to monetize that goal. We've derived a number of rebates from them, and we're able to roll those forward into the next sustainability project. Aviage, GE, Maxwell Technologies, these are names that you're familiar with. They're all attracted to our sustainability brand. And of course, we're attracting the top tier architects, engineers, and construction managers to our projects when they're released out in the marketplace. Staff now has a performance measurement tool to make informed decisions on capital investment with environmental implications and long-term cost savings as high-weighted factors. We didn't have that before until we had a vocabulary to begin to speak and a way of measuring this. So we're establishing new performance baselines from which to push our own envelope even further in all of the projects that we have lined up and forthcoming. So with that said, I'm done talking about new buildings, and I want to give Mr. Imig, our IT department director, an opportunity to speak to some of the operational things that he's able to do in our existing buildings and how that's leading to improvements in our environmental footprint.
Thanks, Ed. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Technology traditionally does not go hand in hand with efficiency and sustainability in its traditional sense. But what we're doing in the information technology department is really working within the trends in the industry and in support of your vision and goals of sustainability and energy efficiency in our operations. I just wanted to highlight briefly some of the things that we're doing in IT to help support that. Energy efficiency in our PCs and laptops, the Energy Star rating, assuring that the hardware we're buying is rated for as sufficient energy use as it possibly can. And that way, we can help reduce the energy footprint that we use in equipment that's on many times 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and so forth. Our ongoing program for standalone printers, those printers that are individually used, not in the sense of a work group, where the consumables, the ink, the toner cartridges, might simply go back into a landfill and not be efficiently reused. We're looking at it in terms of an overall program here in the city to make work group printers more of a standard. The ability for many people to share the same printers. It reduces the energy use on them. It reduces the consumables as far as going back to landfills and so forth. And so we're really pressing with that. That's an ongoing program, and it's something that we've been working through for several years. Next one would be what we call our hot aisle containment in the data center, and I'll just use this as a graphic. Our data center consists of a series of racks, and the cold air goes in one side out of the air conditioning units, which you see on the right with the blue arrow. It passes through the equipment, which then picks up the hot air coming off of these very hot pieces of equipment and goes into a warm row, or what we call a warm aisle. Well, we had a problem where the cold air and the hot air was mixing. And when you have that, the air conditioners work considerably less efficiently. They use more energy and they cycle on and off much more often. So what we did was worked with the facilities division in the Public Works Department to isolate those hot rows through the use of thermal curtains that you'll see in front of you. And these thermal curtains are designed to keep the hot air and cold air from mixing. That way, the hot air can return back into the air conditioning units where it's exchanged and become cold refrigerated air again, and not have it use the energy that it was before. We've got 4 large air conditioning units in the data center, and we believe that this is going to save us considerable energy, and as well as wear and tear on the equipment itself in order to keep our equipment cool. Another one was reduced energy requirements through virtualization. Now, this is an industry trend that we're very much following, which is the concept of utilizing a single piece of hardware running multiple systems as opposed to a one-to-one sort of situation as you would have traditionally had. So on the left, you see what I call the old school server, which was a very large piece of equipment that consumed around 900 watts of power, a lot of power, that supported one application or one system. And in a city our size and as technologically complex as we are, that was a lot of pieces of hardware, around 300 servers, each consuming 900 watts of power, each running one application. So through the concept of virtualization and the fact that technology itself is not only shrinking in size, but shrinking in its energy usage, we're now able to run a single server, 450 watts of power, and we use an average of 9 applications on each one of those servers. So we're getting about a 9-to-1 ratio on that, which has allowed us to reduce our physical server count by over half. I think we're up around 60% at this point. And there's even more efficiencies to be gained. Some organizations are seeing 15, 20, 25, 30-to-1 ratios on their virtualization. So we're really just beginning to see the trend of this as it moves forward. But we really want to be there at the forefront and embrace that and be one of the leaders not only in the valley but in the region on our use of sustainable services in our technology. That's really where we're looking to be. We want to look at future virtualization. That's not only on the server side but perhaps on the PC side. We have an awful lot of public PCs in our libraries and a recreation center and in the community center. Well, those might be opportunities for us to explore virtualization where we still give our patrons of the libraries the capabilities that they're used to go in and use our free computers and take advantage of the technology we have, but perhaps do it in a way where we're using less hardware to support that, through virtualization. You're running many PCs on a single piece of hardware. It's not an easy process, it's not an inexpensive process, but ultimately it uses less energy, it's more sustainable, and it's supportive of the way the trend is going with the marketplace. And then working on identifying new recycling practices. I really want to work with our materials management division to make sure that we're disposing of our equipment in a responsible, sustainable manner. Is the method that we dispose of this equipment the best way to do it? Or are there other ways that we can reuse this equipment or otherwise dispose of it that might be more environmentally responsible and so forth? So those are some of the ways that IT is working to really support the city in your sustainability efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Since we're on the topic of energy efficiency, I would like to now talk to you about an initiative we have been working on. This is me in this is me in the photo, kind of hard taking a selfie with 50 pounds of equipment and turnouts that you can barely move in, but I managed to capture this shady image there. I've spent the past several months exploring opportunities to reduce costs through energy reduction. Back in August, I did a 24-hour ride-along with Peoria's Fire Medical Department, Station 192. I hear it's one of the busiest fire stations, so they put me where it's incredibly busy, and they're going to work me like hard. They didn't. I had to carry a lot of heavy things. Let's just put it that way. I was in full gear. I practically passed out because in full gear I had to do a lot of their physical activity training exercises while running out of oxygen. So I had a full mask, and to simulate what that what that is like to be in that situation, and I was a little bit in a panic mode there, but. Anyway, I wanted to fully understand how a 24-hour, 365 days a year facility used energy, and most importantly, I wanted to understand it from their perspective. I also did a ride-along with Peoria Police for similar reasons to try to understand what it is like to be in their shoes, while at the same time looking for sustainability-related opportunities. Finally, we spent 2 full days conducting high-level energy assessments of all the fire stations, the 3 pools, both libraries, Rio Vista, and a portion of City Hall and Beardsley. In addition to walking around with a clipboard, taking notes, and taking photos, we also talked with staff to hear what they had to say about energy use in each of their work areas. We will continue to analyze energy use in these facilities and come back to council for further discussion. Another facility I would like for us to evaluate and consider is TheaterWorks for energy efficiency opportunities. So next steps, we will continue with energy assessments starting with these 15 facilities I just mentioned. We will evaluate solar expansion opportunities as noted in the Sustainability Action Plan. We will develop a baseline to help us understand where we stand as a sustainable community. We'll continue to work with departments to develop sustainability goals for greater efficiency and resource reduction. And finally, provide you with an end-of-the-year review that will capture everything that the city departments are doing to advance sustainability for the city. I received a lot of emails with many updates in so many things that they're doing to advance our efforts, and it's incredible. So what we would like to do from here on out is anytime we have the opportunity to present in front of you, we would like to highlight 2 departments to be able to go into it a little bit further, to be able to expand on some of the things that they're working on. Before I end, I would like to close with some final thoughts. As you know, not too long ago, Arizona celebrated its 100-year statehood through a centennial celebration. Wanting to capture the moment, the city created its very own time capsule with the intention of opening it in 2062. Let's think about that for a moment. What will Peoria look like 50 years from now? How about 100 years from now? Many of us will never know firsthand, but what we do know is that the ripple effect of our actions will certainly outlive us and will impact future generations. The recession was a trying time, but it was also an opportunity. It was an opportunity to hit the pause button, which gave us a chance to reflect and regroup. There was a term, the new normal, which was widely used across the United States to describe the slow growth and recovery following the recession. We heard it a lot here too. To this day, I think about that term a lot. I think about how this new normal is never going to be a new normal anymore, as we are in a constant flux, always changing, adapting, and preparing, and trying to anticipate what tomorrow will bring. What has been steady, however, is your, Mayor and Council's, leadership and vision for the future, and most helpful to us, your unwavering support for staff and the management team. Thank you today and every day for that. With that, I'm available for any questions or comments that you may have for me or any of us.
Thank you. What a great presentation. Council, do you have any questions? Councilmember Leone?
It's not a question, it's just a comment, okay?
That's fine.
First place, I'll be here 100 years from now, so don't worry about it. I just want to say you did a great job on this. I know you put it together yourself. Nobody helped you, not even your husband or your kids. So you did a great job putting it together and a good informant to the council. I want to congratulate you, and you're doing a great job, and thank you again for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hunt?
Well, I want to echo what Carlos said. Thank you to all of you, and really to all of our staff, because, Lisa, what I think you've done is you've brought accountability and environmental issues to the forefront of our thinking. And I still use plastic water bottles, but we do recycle them. It's on our minds now, and that's partly due to your efforts of bringing it there. And for those of you that run other departments, thank you for making that a priority in your departments too. So overall, I'm so proud. I'm just so proud of all of this. I'm proud to be on council working with things that are taking place like this. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to congratulate all of you. This is a fantastic presentation, represents responsible management, leadership. It affects everything we do as a city. You have contributed to everyone, collectively, all of us, to a very special culture here in Peoria. And I'm very proud of all of you too. Congratulations, and hold us accountable. Keep us moving this direction, definitely. Thank you.
Councilmember Patena?
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation. I have a question for you, Ed. I think they have platinum certification in Leeds and gold and I believe silver.
Yes.
What are some of the distinctive differences between, say, platinum and gold and silver?
Tough question. You put me on the spot. LEED is a numeric rating system. So if we just look at a 100-point scale, equate it to your report card, at certified, you might have graduated. At silver, your parents are pretty proud. At gold, you're impressing the grandparents. And at platinum, you got a scholarship to Harvard. So each one of those thresholds, your energy performance ratchets up. You are doing things that just continue to squeeze the savings out of the systems. Now, with that can come a greater capital investment, and you have to look at where does that occur. So our counterparts in Flagstaff, for example, they have the higher concentration of platinum buildings, and can you guess why? They're not baking in the desert at 115 degrees, and they're allowed to open a window. So when that happens, their energy performance on their mechanical systems can go exponentially further than ours can here in the valley. Water use, we've kind of pegged the top of that. We've done pretty well. There are different points that you can get in a different type of urban core. If you have redevelopment density and other things that you're trying to do, to kind of densify the urban core, deal with parking creative ways, you can get a lot of points through that. That might be more applicable in a Portland or a Seattle, but in Peoria we don't have that kind of urban core yet, so we miss out on all those points. Our largest lion's share of points comes solely from the energy side. Lighting energy, plug load energy reduction, HVAC performance. The mayor and council have made a very substantial investment over the last 2 decades in what's called energy management that our public works facilities folks use. Big Brother is watching how you use your power, and they're able to measure, what does that 74 degrees mean to the monthly power bill versus 76. And when we have those kinds of tools, we can continue to push and push and push and become more efficient. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but the Flagstaff reference is probably the easier thing. They can get there at that platinum level where we can't in our climate. So.
Well, I just have a couple comments. First of all, I really appreciate that you have taken some of the squishiness out of words like sustainability and recycling and those kinds of things that people have used in vain sometimes, and you've put them into something that is fiscally sound and made it something that helps us save taxpayer dollars and put it into, long-range planning and things that we can use and wrap our arms around and say, this is us being responsible, not only now, but for our grandchildren, and not only with today's money, but the dollars that those future generations will also have to spend. So I really appreciate you putting it into a place that we can all wrap our arms around and say, we are doing something that is smart and intelligent, not just another squishy word like green, but smart, intelligent, and, fiscally sound. So thank you so much. I would love to have you guys come back another time and talk in more detail about other subjects such as water. I happen to love that subject. I'd like to know more about stormwater management and what we're doing with it. You talked a little bit about wanting to examine our solar expansion. I'd love to hear more about how you're planning to do that and the cost versus the return on that investment. So there's so much more for us to know and so much more for us to do. So I'm just very, very excited that we have such a great team out there. Lisa, thank you for heading it up and doing all the 24-hour things that you do so that you can see it from their point of view. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Appreciate all of your work and how far you've brought this department of yours. It's really good for our city now and way into the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you all. Okay, so we are now going to move on to our next study session agenda item, and that is the overview of the principles of sound financial management. Ms. DeLuden?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our presenter tonight of our sound fiscal and financial policies is Brent Mattingly, our Finance Director and Chief Financial Officer. Brent is here not only to give an overview, because it's been quite some time since we've done an overview, but also report to you on some upcoming minor revisions that we plan to bring to Council shortly.
Good, thank you.
Brent?
Thank you, Susan. This is a bottle that I reuse over and over again. I do. I don't. This is not a new bottle. I keep it in my office. I refill it. I carry it in my car. So it's okay. Thank you very much. So tonight, a little bit about just kind of a brief overview on our principles of sound financial management, kind of what they are. So what they really do is they establish guidelines for the city's overall fiscal planning and management. And for many years now, they have served as that foundation for financial decision-making that you all make in your role in the city council, and they serve to support the strength of the city's financial position and the stability of our finances. Following the principles just regularly will accomplish a number of things. It definitely enhances the city's financial health, as well as our image and credibility with our citizens and the public and investors in our bonds, bond rating agencies, and others. Over the past years, when we went through the Great Recession, these financial policies really did two things. First of all, prior to the recession, they positioned the city very well to weather that difficult time. And then during the recession, it gave the city council some strong principles to follow to help get through that difficult time as well. So I wanted to just kind of briefly, the principles cover a number of topics: accounting, financial reporting, debt management, appropriate levels of our fund balance, even economic development and other topics. Here are some examples of those. Overall, there are 17 principles in the document today. So where did they come from and how were they developed? Well, back in 2000, the City Council adopted the very first initial principles of sound financial management, and you did that by council action. Prior to that, these types of financial principles really didn't exist in the city of Peoria in a documented way. There have been several subsequent revisions over the years, some of those fairly minor, and some of those actually pretty major revisions to these. When we undertake a review of these policies, we involve staff from other departments, utilities, economic development departments, and others. We may solicit input from outside agencies, our outside certified public accounting firm. We look at Government Finance Officers Association best practices. We'll talk to other cities or look at what they've adopted, those things and others as well. And then staff will develop any recommended changes. We'll discuss that with the executive management team and bring forward to you for discussion and consideration whether you want to make those changes. It might, if it's a significant set of changes, we'd probably do it in this setting in a council study session, then bring them back to you for formal adoption. In the past, you've adopted them via council resolution at a council meeting. So just very briefly, wanted to go through just a few of the policies. I'm not going to go through all 17 tonight, but I wanted to highlight a few things. Some of these we actually routinely discuss with you. You may not, actually, we may not point out, hey, this is one of our principles of in that document, but it kind of permeates what we do and what we talk to you about. An example of that, out of our fiscal planning and budgeting policy, the tentative budget is on your city council agenda tonight. Well, that reflects your policy goals as a group. Well, the Principles of Sound Financial Management refers to that. It says, the budget and fiscal planning will be based upon the council's policy goals. Another example, we often share with you the 5-year forecast, operating forecast, for example, for the general fund, for other major funds. That actually comes out of these policies that we will have a 5-year look ahead, and that's what we're doing when we share that information with you. And you're pretty familiar with how we often talk about, ongoing revenues and supporting ongoing expenditures versus one-time revenues and one-time expenditures. Our fund balance is also covered under one of these policies, and it recognizes that our fund balance is an important indicator of our financial position. The Principles of Sound Financial Management define what that fund balance will be for various funds in the city. Rating agencies, when they look at the city, place a strong, they take a close look at our fund balance. They consider Peoria's fund balance to be what they would call very strong. So that's right up at the very top of how strong it could be. And that that helps us because in some of the other categories that those rating agencies look at, we aren't very strong. Maybe some demographic data that they might look at in looking at their ratings. So this really helps offset some of the areas we might not be quite up to where our bond rating is today. And as you know, staff periodically conducts user fee studies for all types of fees around the city. Then we bring that study to the city council and you establish recovery goals. So depending upon the type of program it might be, you may want to get 100% recovery of the costs when you set fees. In other cases, you may find that it's of social benefit where you want to recover lower than 100%. And I think, in fact, tonight's agenda includes an item for you, for your consideration of establishing user fees in the Community Services Department. There's a policy on debt management. It covers quite a number of important principles, such as when issuing debt is appropriate, how that debt's going to be structured, compliance topics, so we make sure that we're following SEC, IRS regulations in terms of the disclosure to investors that might be interested in buying that debt. and when we might look at refunding or refinancing outstanding bonds because, for example, the interest rates may have dropped and we can save money. So these policies, again, outline pretty clearly how we're going to look at that in terms of our debt management. As I mentioned, economic development is a section. That was one of the major changes several years ago. This section was expanded quite a bit. It contains some of your goals that you have today regarding economic development, such as diversifying the city's tax base among different industries, attracting certain kinds of industries and certain types of jobs, and importantly, making sure that when there is an economic development opportunity, we look at any assistance based upon the performance and outcomes of that particular company or project that we'd be supporting. There's also a separate policy in these principles on the half-cent sales tax fund, and we've talked to you about that previously. It talks again about, accounting for those funds separately, how the revenues will be expended, a prioritization actually of how those revenues in the half-cent sales tax fund would be expended. There's another policy in here about cash management and investment. That policy says that the council will adopt a separate investment policy. So you've done that. That's what we follow when we invest available funds. And in fact, our quarterly investment report's on your city council tonight. So you see that fairly regularly. Susan had mentioned that we're going to be coming back at your next meeting recommending 2 minor changes. One of those changes will be to the city's investment policy that would allow investment in pooled certificates of deposits with banks. That's an investment vehicle that's allowed under state statute. It was added a few years ago. Our investment policy does not include it, so we want to include that as an additional investment vehicle that we may look at if we can increase our yield a little bit without sacrificing any of the safety. So that'll be on your next council agenda with a little bit more explanation of what that would be. We also have a policy regarding water and wastewater funds. So that policy, for example, requires periodic rate studies, and you've seen those. We've conducted those and brought those to you in the past. Through those, you consider adopting utility rates and what those rates should be to support the operations and capital of the water, primarily the water and the wastewater operations. And the rate studies include things like our bond rating and where certain parameters need to be to support the existing bond rating. And you get to decide, if the rates are going to be sufficient to do that as well. And probably, of significant interest is in that policy, it says that water and wastewater rates will be established only to the level to support the operations of those funds. We don't use water and wastewater revenues and remove them from those funds and use them to support general city operations. I know that's been important to the council in the past. So there's actually a section in the policies that says, over time the city's going to change and your priorities are going to change, and we may need to go back and look at these and bring you some revisions. So in the year ahead, we intend to do that through that process I described earlier. Again, those would be reviewed by Carl and executive management, and we'd be bringing those back to you if significant and having a further conversation about those changes. In the meantime, I mentioned at the next city council meeting the change in the investment policy. The other change is, again, a very minor change. It's in our fixed asset policy in the Principles of Sound Financial Management, and it simply increases the threshold of what we consider to be a fixed asset significantly. It was at $5,000, which requires a lot of year-end accounting work that really isn't necessary. We can increase that level significantly and still maintain very accurately our fixed asset accounting records for the city. So as we head into our year-end process, we'll be bringing that back to you as well for your consideration at your next meeting. That was really kind of the brief overview. If you have any questions or tonight or would like additional information, I'd be happy to help.
Council, do you have any questions? You have a comment?
I do. I have a comment. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the fact that we have such a comprehensive process here with how we manage the finances here, and I hope the public recognizes how that does have an impact on our bond ratings and how that, you know, a very positive impact on those bond ratings. So I appreciate everything that you guys do on this, and I really appreciate how responsible we are and how open we are at what we do, and open that up to the public, and they can see exactly what our rules are, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
I would just like to say that we are really, really fortunate in this city to have a chief financial officer who is so knowledgeable and who really cares so deeply about the city of Peoria and about doing things in a principled, ethical manner. Not only that, he is an expert on so many a large variety of subjects, and we recently had some legislative issues where Mr. Mattingly was called upon as an expert in the entire valley. I mean, it was about taxing districts, and there was nobody who knew as much about taxing districts and who knew as well as Mr. Mattingly did that this was bad public policy. And we were so fortunate to be able to have you, to put you out there, and you can just, you know, give information to everybody who needed to know. Unfortunately, some of our legislators didn't know, but thankfully our governor did, and he vetoed that bill, and I think a lot of that was due to the expertise that you brought to the table there. So I just want to personally thank you for all of your efforts. I know it was a really long legislative session, and you were available anytime anybody needed to talk about that. So you really made Peoria look incredible. Thank
I'm
you.
glad I could help, and as you know, a lot of people were involved in that effort, so thank you.
I do know that.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people were involved in it, and I know a lot of people turned to you to hear what the truth was. So I'm not going to back down from that. And I would also like to offer our council a little bit of your time. You know, whenever I had questions, you know, I looked at our investment strategy one time, and I realized that we weren't making a lot of profit off of the money that we have sitting in the bank. And so I asked Mr. Mattingly to come and talk to me about that. Why aren't we, you know, getting more interest off of our revenue? And he explained to me in a very patient manner how our philosophy is not to gain revenue from our investments. It is to make sure that our taxpayer dollars are safe first. And there is a list of priorities and policies that he adheres to as we take care of taxpayer dollars. And it's a completely different way than you might consider doing it when you're at home and you're looking at your own investments or your own checkbook. And so I'm very, very thankful that he's there and so knowledgeable, but I would like, you know, to make sure that all of you, if you have any questions, that you call him up and ask him to just sit down and meet with you, and he is always more than generous with his time. So I want you to know how much we appreciate you in the city of Peoria, and I'm sure that our taxpayers also appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right, then. Mr. Luden?
Mayor, City Council, that ends our presentation on all of our sustainable policies. As you can see on both, they're not static. And we look to the future on all policies that we present to council. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned until our 7 o'clock meeting.